Also joining us now from Ontario's political commentator, Mr. Jason Unruhe, who's here to give us his perspective on the demonstrations that we're seeing right now. Mr. Unruhe, it's the third week in a row where Palestinians are showing up in the Gaza Strip to protest the Israeli occupation, and with it, the Israeli regime has continued with its deadly aggression. Give us your thoughts on how events have been transpiring over the past few weeks.
Well, my thoughts are definitely that this is, another day, another crime against humanity for Israel. I mean, this is frankly nothing to them. This has no effect on their conscience. This is just a stock and trade of who they are. I mean, this defines the very core of not only the occupation, but the mentality of the occupier, the people who are carrying out this brutality against the Palestinian people. At the worst, they might suffer some kind of criticism in the media or some kind of, international condemnation from the countries that tend to actually care about what's going on right now. Back in the day, maybe they might have gotten a bit of a criticism from Barack Obama, but still a free hand to continue to do the acts that they're carrying out right now. But as it stands right now, the UN simply has absolutely no concern for the plight of the Palestinians at this moment. Israel basically has a free hand to continue to go on and kill Palestinians over simply demanding their right to be on their own land. This is a protest. Palestinians come, they wave flags, they chant slogans, and they're met with sniper fire. They're met with rubber bullets. They're met with all kinds of violence. Palestinians don't even need to commit an act of violence against Israel because Israel is going to come in and brutalize them anyway. So it's not even necessary on their part. These people have been brutalized for decades and decades at the hands of the Israelis, who have had a free hand to do this however much they want, and nothing ever is done to them. Even the odd time that some kind of resolution is written against them, they simply don't abide by, and there are simply no consequences for their actions. The UN right now doesn't seem to be paying attention at all as to what's happening inside of Palestine right now. They're too busy trying to demonize and punish Syria for standing up to the very people that are continuing to support this atrocity that's happening live right now through these images. Israel will suffer no consequences for these assaults on the Palestinian people, and that is a true crime, a crime against humanity. The UN is supposed to be some kind of regulatory body for promoting peace, say a peaceful trade, but in general to keep a kind of order upon the world that is supposed to be against actions like this that are being carried out by Palestine right now. But they're looking completely the other way, and this begs the question, what good is the United Nations if it's going to stand by and allow this to happen? I mean, I think it's very clear from people who have bothered to watch history, have bothered to watch the situation right now, that the UN is acting completely as a tool of the imperialist powers in the world. The United States, primarily the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, the UK, etc., and they serve their interests. If somebody does even the smallest thing, which is questionable, from one of the countries that don't wield the power over the UN, there's, it's a major felony. There's a mass investigations, etc. But when things like this come out.
Mr. Jason Unruhe is joining us from Ontario. Mr. Unruhe, I'm not sure if you're seeing the images that we're watching right now, but the demographics of the people who are participating in these demonstrations, they're women, children, men of all ages, and in response to that, the Israeli Minister for Military Affairs, Avigdor Lieberman, has bluntly stated that there are no innocent people in Gaza. That's a very scary comment, isn't it?
Path, if you ask me. Yeah, I am seeing the images. I do have them going right now. I am seeing the people surrounding the child who has been burned by the Israeli tear gas. I'm sorry, but if you can look a child in the face or shoot it with tear gas, burn it, and tell it that it's the bad guy. I mean, you have no soul. I mean, that there's frankly no other way to put it. The demographics of the people who are at these protests right now are wholly appropriate. They are the Palestinian people who are trying to return to their own land. They're the people who live there, whose lives have been uprooted, ruined, even many of them destroyed and killed by the Israeli occupiers. In this situation, I mean, it's wholly appropriate that it's them there. And the fact that these IDF forces are attacking journalists, are now firing tear gas into the area where the journalists are. I mean, we can very clearly see that there are no militants there. There are no people with weapons attacking Israeli forces inside that area. I mean, it's very clear. There's cameras everywhere. We're seeing these images right now. I mean, yet they are being deliberately targeted by Israeli forces who seemingly don't even want people to be able to get the images of what's going on right now. And that shows a tremendous amount of courage on the part of the journalists who are on the ground right now, the correspondents who are frankly risking their lives to get these images out to the world to see what is happening right now on the ground. And as I said, it shows a tremendous amount of courage from them, and frankly, a cold-bloodedness coming from the Israeli forces who feel that it's okay to attack the media. I mean, you can't claim that the media are the enemies in this case, or at least non-combatants. Or at least you cannot claim them to be combatants that are a threat to the Israeli soldiers. And frankly, it's terribly disgusting. And this is highly reflective of the mentality that the Israeli occupiers have. As he said, there are no innocent people, and thus anybody who dares question the immoral actions of Israel and its occupation are to be seen as nothing more than combatants to be shot at. What makes an enemy in this case is simply disagreeing with their position. We haven't really seen any acts of violence out of the Palestinians who are protesting. If anything, they're burning the tires, trying to make it so that snipers can't see them or to get shots on them. These are purely defensive measures trying to protect themselves from the attackers, which is the Israeli Defense Force. And that speaks volumes that it's the IDF that's firing tear gas, it's firing rubber bullets, that there's killing people with sniper fire. And on the other side, you have Palestinians merely trying not to get shot at by these same forces. And these images speak volumes about what's going on right now and what's not being criticized by much of the imperialist-owned media. The Western media is not really paying much attention to this situation that's unfolding right now, and because it would make them look bad, because they have been supporting the Israeli occupation all these decades merely for their own interests, for their own benefit, and much to the dismay of the Palestinian people. And this is quite frankly horrible, and one tends to run out of words to describe these sickening images.
Mr. Unruhe, we've also been focusing on the lack of an Arab response or an Arab initiative with regards to the Palestinians. That is also it's playing a big factor in how the Israelis so blatantly violate the rights of the Palestinians without any fear of repercussion or accountability.
Many of them, I'm sure, probably on some level do care, but many of them are probably scared to take some kind of action. If there was, like you said, the IOC, the OIC, sorry, the name eludes me at the moment, were to send some kind of force in there, most undoubtedly they'd be attacked by the IDF, and we would probably see the UN coming down on them, claiming that they're violating the sovereign territory of Israel. I mean, there's many countries that certainly do sympathize with what's going on with them right now, but find them in an untenable position of not being able to help as much as they could. But the one group that could be doing a great deal to help is Saudi Arabia. Yet they turn a completely blind eye to their Muslim brothers and sisters who are being destroyed at this moment by Israel. Meanwhile, they're turning around and recognizing Israel as a state. They're trying to carry out economic cooperation with them with complete and utter indifference to what their Muslim brothers and sisters are going through right now. They could wield a significant amount of influence in this situation. They could cut off trade. They could take all kinds of peaceful measures, not to mention if they really did care, some kind of military assistance. But no doubt they would be lambasted by the UN. Although how much the UN would really attack Saudi Arabia, I really don't know. But they really could do it, and they have the most ability to do something about it, and yet they are the ones of the Islamic world that are doing the absolute least about it. I mean, actually, I shouldn't even say doing the least, actually doing the most to support what is going on. Actions more in the negative, not the least amount of positive.
Yes.
I really should put it that way.
Thank you, sir. Jason Unruhe, political commentator, joining us from Ontario. Well, let's go back to Mr. Jason Unruhe, who's joining us from Ontario. Mr. Unruhe, we've been seeing the U.S.'s unequivocal support for the Israeli regime just over the past 2 weeks. Statements condemning the Israeli aggression, the apparent deadly Israeli aggression against the Palestinians, were blocked by the United States at the United Nations Security Council. I think that it's reached a new level of audacity, how the United States is just totally and outright completely supporting the Israeli regime and has given it the green light to act as it pleases.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely the case. They have a free hand to do whatever it is that they want to the Palestinian people. And the United States can stand there and simply just acquiesce to their actions, to even outright defend them in many of these cases, as the one you just described. If anything speaks to the cold-blooded nature of imperialism, this is certainly it. The Palestinians are not even human in the eyes of the United States. It's not even, they're not human in the eyes of their capital interest. It's simply disgusting that this is a thing that allows to go on. And as your other guest said, they completely rail on and on about alleged chemical attacks inside of Syria. Meanwhile, here they are very clearly condoning what is essentially a genocide that's been going on for decades. They've been either looking the other way or covering up, sometimes using themselves as a shield to allow Israel to carry out these inhumane acts against these people. And this makes the United States as completely culpable in this situation as Israel is. And in fact, if Israel were ever to be taken to the International Criminal Court for the crimes that they've committed over these decades, the United States should be standing right next to them on the docket, being held up before the entire world, have all the evidence of everything that's been going on and expose their crimes for all the peoples of the world to see, so that they would really know the depth of the inhumanity that the United States has been carrying on with this. They continually rail on and on about themselves being the champions of freedom and democracy and the champions of human rights, and it's their duty, to their self-appointed duty, to stand up and criticize anyone who disagrees with them whatsoever, and to stand there and say that they care about human rights when they have carried out the greatest human rights in all of history. 500,000 children died in Iraq when they placed sanctions against the government of Saddam Hussein. They killed millions in the war in Vietnam. How many countless were killed throughout Latin America as democratically elected governments came into power that simply didn't agree with the U.S. having control over their economy and their resources and unfettered access to their markets. I mean, who is the United States to say anything? They come in and they kill 1.5 million people in Afghanistan because of claiming to be going after bin Laden for the events of September 11th, 2001. And then based on an entire lie, they walk into Iraq and kill another 1.5 million people over claims of weapons of mass destruction that simply did not exist. These weapons, there was no evidence of their existence whatsoever. A pure lie. This was purely an attempt to control the energy resources in the country. And we should not forget Libya, the one that tends to get forgotten about some time, the assault on Muammar Gaddafi and the rest of the country, merely to capture its energy resources as well. And the so-called champions of freedom and democracy went so far as to essentially bring back slavery in the country. And while I'm sure that they didn't intend to do that, this is the result of their actions. This is the result of U.S. foreign policy in the region, and it's about time that they be dragged before the cameras of the international court, to be dragged before the people of the world, held up on stage, and have all of their crimes exposed for the whole world to see, and for them to suffer a righteous judgment for it. And I think that it's a shame that this is something that we will probably never see, given the amount of influence that the U.S. wields over the United Nations. And this is a shame on the United Nations. There are people in there who genuinely care about the poor and the disposed in the world, and that includes the Palestinians. And they have to be stuck in this situation where they can't do anything, while the higher-ups, those who wield the real power in this situation, are standing by while these terrible atrocities are being committed. And it's really to finish this thought, about time that the United States and its accomplices in Israel, or vice versa, to be finally put on trial for these crimes that they're guilty of.
Thank you, Mr. Unruhe. Mr. Unruhe, we were going over some of the comments coming from the Hamas political officials. They've stated that they will continue these demonstrations until the siege is lifted on the Gaza Strip. This is putting more focus on the issue of the persistence of the resistance against the Israeli occupation and the Israeli violation of rights of the Palestinians, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, realistically, what choice do they have? It's either this or death. So, I mean, the only logical choice in this situation is to resist with everything that you have. It is necessary to stand up to the Zionist occupation of Palestine. And this is an unforgivable act. I mean, these people don't have the resources to carry out the necessary military campaign it would be necessary to remove Israel from Palestinian land. They're doing the best that they can with what they have, because this is their land, this is their home. They have nothing else. There's a question of a life with dignity or no life at all. I mean, this is from the expansion of the settlements that have taken place over the past decade show that they will be pushed completely out of the country in totality if Israel ever got its way. There's no reason that Palestinians should ever stop protesting these actions by these disgusting actions by Israel. Hamas is right to call on everybody to continue these protests until their land comes back, because I'm frankly at a loss for words other than to say, you know, what choice do they have? This is their home. This is who they are. They don't have anything else.
Thank you, sir. Political commentator from Ontario, Mr. Jason Unruhe, joining us here as we're covering the third consecutive Friday of demonstrations taking place in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank.